Welcome back to Shade Tree Certified, folks. Today we are out here on this WA500-8. Customer tells me that they were running it like normal, and then all of a sudden they went to shift from forward to reverse, and it was stuck in neutral. So let's figure out what the issue is. First thing I do anytime I roll up to a piece of equipment that's having trouble is turn on the master switch, because nothing hurts your feelings more than climbing all the way up there and then realizing that it was off, just like I just did. And that green light is on, so that means the controllers are talking to each other. Let's climb in the cab and see what codes we've got. So I'm up here in the cab, and I'm going to, it does have an active fault, so it's down arrow 1 2 3. See what this code is. Gosh, guys, sorry about the annoying beeping noise, but we're going to look at the abnormality record, electrical system, an engine controller partial data loss error code. What brings about that fault code is whenever you turn the master switch off, like these guys did when they parked this loader, that green light that you saw me look at, that is the communication status light for the CAN system. And when that thing is on, that means that the controllers are talking to each other. I'll go ahead and shut that off because I need to do it anyway. But whenever you kill the master switch on these machines that have a CAN communication network, they're talking to each other whenever that light's on. So when you shut the key off on the machine, it goes through a shutdown procedure, and all the modules in the machine are communicating after you turn the key switch off. So when you go and kill that master switch and cut battery power, that's exactly like unplugging a computer straight from the wall. It doesn't like doing that. Your computer at your house has to go through a shutdown procedure, just like these machines have to go through a shutdown procedure. And how you remedy that, unless there's a different issue where it's losing battery power without someone shutting the key switch off. For instance, if the batteries are low and you go to start it and the machine loses power, like I think it's 18 volts or something like that, if it drops below 18, the controllers will shut themselves off. If you have that going on, then it's a separate issue. But in this case, it's because they shut the master switch off. And to correct that, this thing just has to go through a shutdown procedure successfully in order to self-clear that fault code. So it takes, I think it's 6 minutes and 20 seconds is what these Komatsus run their shutdown procedure on, because I've timed it. So I just shut the key off. I'm going to go back there and look at that green light, make sure it turns off, and then I'll come in here and turn this key switch back on, and that fault code should be clear if everything's working correctly. All right, so been sitting here, didn't feel like having a whole 6-minute segment on waiting on this light to go off, but the light has gone off. So I'm going to go back up in the cab and key the machine back on. So I'm going to key the key switch on. All right. So the fault code's gone, but this beeping noise is, you have that joystick steering icon on, and I just had to finagle this steering lever to get it back to center. So let's go back into abnormality record, electrical system, and AJSS frame potentiometer signal deviation. So that happened at 10,851 hours. So that's interesting. There's no fault codes associated with the transmission on either of these. So they did tell me, oh yeah, we looked behind the seat, and there were some wires back there behind the seat that were broken that my guys repaired. So I'm gonna look back here and see what in the hell they're talking about, because they said they repaired some wires back here behind the seat. Usually they have a freaking fire extinguisher or something thrown back here. So I'm gonna dig around back here and see if I can find something. There's no error codes on the monitor to do with you know, your shifter switch or anything like that. Usually if you have like a short or something like that on this shifter switch, it's going to throw a code for it. But in this case, I don't have any transmission codes active or anything other than the joystick steering codes, which those are old. So, and on top of that, it wouldn't affect your transmission going in and out of gear. So I'm going to dig around back here behind the seat, see what I can find. So it turns out the operators weren't completely full of crap. So I did find some butt connectors back here, you know, Butt connectors are never a good sign in this line of work, because why? Because that means a hack has been working on whatever you're working on. Blade terminals and non-insulated blade terminals are the same way, right? So what this wire is right here, that's got these butt connectors on there, and for whatever reason they decided to run it through the frame of the seat right there, so when the seat goes up, it just freaking unplugs it. That's all it did. So you can see right there, that blade terminal has come off. That's probably, I don't know when that happened. That probably happened when I just got out of the seat just now, because I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to stick that underneath the freaking seat frame. That's pretty dumb, because this harness, golly. So this harness right here is supposed to have a P-clip right there in that bolt hole, P-clip in that bolt hole, P-clip right here, and it goes over here on the bottom side of the seat and plugs in right there. So I would bet that there's supposed to be a P-clip right here on this as well. So these guys have elected to just lay this thing down here, and like I said, there was probably a fire extinguisher down here at one point. But what this pressure switch right here does is whenever you lock or unlock this console like that, there's a mechanical lever that turns on the pilot oil that goes to your joystick steering valve down here. So whenever you lean that console forward, you saw it move that arm. That turns the valve on, lets pilot pressure go through, and your pilot pressure obviously goes through the valve and down to your steering orbital valve that's down here under the floor. And the job of that pressure switch is to tell your transmission and work equipment controller that, hey, I've got pilot pressure going through me. That means the operator's ready to go. So it turns on, tells it electronically that it's ready to work. So when you push that lever for forward or reverse, it lets the transmission controller know, yeah, I can go ahead and go into gear because he's got the steering unlocked. But if you're not getting a signal from that pressure switch, it's going to fail into the safer side of operation. If it fails, it's not going to let you go ahead and run the machine. So that pressure switch has to be closed by pressure before you can shift the transmission into forward and reverse. The reason being is it doesn't want you to be able to run the loader forward or reverse without the steering being able to operate. So it would, in a mechanical failure of, say, the steering pump loses pressure and you don't get pressure through that valve, your steering stops working, it's going to kick your loader into neutral and not let you drive anywhere, because obviously you don't have steering. So the proper repair here is going to be, I'm going to go get some Deutsch connectors and some wire out of my truck, and I'm going to cut this garbage piece of crap off of here. I'm going to cut that garbage piece of crap off of that end. I'm going to crimp some nice new Deutsch connector terminals on there. I'm going to put a 2-pin Deutsch connector on it, like came from the factory, just like these right here. I'm going to crimp it on there with a little bit of extra wire. I'm going to run it behind that rod, catch that bolt hole with a zip tie, catch this with a zip tie, probably zip tie it to these harnesses because that's for the seat heater and all that stuff. And I'm going to plug it in like it's meant to be so we don't run into this again. So I'm going to go get my electrical tools and get this thing fixed. I guess I can't be totally upset about this. I mean, at least the guys tried to use some sort of, you know, terminal or whatever to make this a semi-permanent repair. Even though, I mean, you drop one water bottle on this, it's going to unplug it or, you know, rip the freaking wire right out of the terminal. That one's actually crimped surprisingly well. Freaking yanked on that and it stayed in there. But if you're going to do a repair, guys, do it the right way. Keep in mind where your wires are running, what the wire does. And in this case, this wire has to move up and down with this air suspension seat. So I can't rag on these guys too much. At least they used actual terminals instead of just twisting these wires together and leaving them bare, or, you know, using a wire nut or some electrical tape and just twisting them together. So let's get that fixed. So the way I'm going to fix this, folks, I'm going to use yellow wire because that's the smallest conductor I have. Sue me. This is 18 gauge SAE copper conductor wire. Do not use copper clad aluminum because it's garbage. I'm just going to get my female, gosh, if I can find the camera, I'm going to use my female Deutz connector terminal, and I'm going to use my Amazon special Deutz connector terminal crimpers and crimp that terminal on there. Okay, and these are a ratcheting terminal crimper, so it will not let you release it until you have crimped it all the way. I've used the you can use the $350, you know, Deutz name brand terminal crimpers, but these work just fine for me. I haven't come across anything that I haven't been able to crimp with those yet. The only times that they are a little bit of an issue is when you're in a tight spot. Those Deutz branded crimpers do have a feature where you can ratchet them down and set the depth of your terminal in the crimper. So you can set the depth of the crimper in the actual terminal, so you can have it sticking out here flush, and you can locate where the crimp is on the actual terminal. So I'll show you that right quick. If I just stick these things in here all the way, if I stick it all the way in there, it's gonna crimp way out here on the end of this terminal. So I gotta hold it just a little bit off of completely bottomed out, and it crimps it right in the middle of that Deutz terminal. So that's the only drawback to these $25 Amazon special made in China crimpers, but they do the job just fine. So I'm gonna put my retainer in there. And if you're wondering what I'm using for a Deutz tool kit, I just have a kit that I threw together out of our consumables. We have a plethora of Deutz connectors at our disposal for this very reason. So I'm crimping on that much wire. I'll cut it off when I get up there, but I'm gonna need 2 male pins as well. And the way Komatsu designates their pin, let's just call it sexes, even though that might trigger somebody. The Komatsu calls these male pins, they call that male pin. That's how they designate the connector. So if you're in your troubleshooting tree and Komatsu says that it is a male connector, or disconnect connector number C81 or something like that, female side, you're going to want to disconnect the connector with the socket on the end of it. This is the female pin. Komatsu refers to their connectors in reference to the pin, not in reference to the socket. This is a female socket. This is a male socket. For obvious reasons, we all know how that stuff works. So, but this is a female pin when you're in Komatsu stuff. This is a male pin, so just keep that in mind. So I've already crimped my female terminals onto the wire. Golly, my terminals are all mixed up in here. This is terrible. I'm gonna have to go through here and sort that out. But I'm gonna go up in the machine and crimp these terminals on the machine side harness wires. I'm not gonna add any to the machine side harness just because I've got plenty of wires sticking out to get these on and get a connector on it without having any issues. So I'm gonna go up there and do that, bring you along with me. So you may be saying to me, oh Jacob, why you gotta hate on people that use butt connectors, man? Sometimes that's all that we've got. Yeah, well, it's okay. I don't hate on butt connectors. I use butt connectors just like I am right now. But when you use them, be sure to use good quality, made in the USA, tin coated copper butt connectors. Even if I don't crimp these, that tin is gonna resist corrosion, and they'll be good for the life of this machine. I use butt connectors regularly on stuff that's non-critical, like this thing in here. It's not going to see any excessive vibrations. It's not going to see any excessive heat or excessive cold being out next to the engine or whatever. If this was a can circuit on the side of the engine harness, you bet your bottom dollar I would be using heat shrink and butt connectors. You bet your bottom dollar I would be soldering and heat shrinking these wires. But if you make a good connection on these butt connectors, they're not coming apart. You could even go as far as to buy the butt connectors with the solder in there. I don't like using those that have solder in there because you have to get this plastic too hot to melt it. Even though it is a low temp solder, it's really not doing much of any good. Like if you have to do that to get by, that's one thing, but just using a high quality butt connector. These are nice soft silicone butt connectors, so when I shrink that down, one, it's going to shrink really easily, and it's going to tighten as it cools. So it's going to make a weather tight connection. Not like I have to have any sort of weather resistance inside this cab. I could just twist these together and heat shrink them if I wanted to, but I'm not a hack, so I'm not going to do that. So, and also another thing is, you may see the floorboard right here. This is the outside of the cab. I've run this wire out here where I can get to it, because there's no sense in leaning over the seat back over that way just to connect these butt connectors. So I'm going to crimp them on this one side. I'm going to go over here, show you what I'm doing on the harness side. Like I said a minute ago, I'm going to crimp Deutsch connector terminals on these wires right here. I've already stripped them back, and I'm going to put them terminals on there. I'm going to put on this socket and then put the keeper inside there. That thing's a pain in the butt to get straight with one hand, so I'm going to use two hands. And then after I get this thing crimped back together and secured, I'll show you what the finished product is going to look like. So this is what the semi-finished repair is going to look like, okay? Like I said, I don't have anything against butt connectors, but use a high quality butt connector, crimp it on both sides, and heat shrink it. If you don't have a heat shrink butt connector, go get some heat shrink and put over the top of that butt connector, especially if it's out in the elements where it can get any kind of contamination like water or dust inside of it. Believe it or not, that dirt will hold humidity. It doesn't have to be getting rained on, but that dirt is going to act like a sponge when the air is really humid or when it's raining outside. It's going to suck up water and hold it against your conductors. So I'm going to go get some loom this wire, and then zip tie it back down here where it was supposed to be before they had it run underneath the seat frame. And that's what it looks like finished up, folks. Nice, clean, loomed repair. Be sure when you're using this corrugated loom also that you wrap your wires before you put them on, especially if this thing's going to see any vibration. This one's not, since it's in the cab, but if it was on the engine or transmission or outside of the machine, I have seen where this plastic corrugated wire loom has rubbed completely through the insulation of the wire and through the conductor and caused an issue. That particular time was on an engine speed sensor, so it was vibrating a lot. But loom your wires, tape it before, tape it after, zip tie it up. Don't be a trash ball and cut them in a 45. Cut them flush. The next guy will thank you. Just like that, folks, we're good to go. And kick the park brake off. My steering lever is forward. Goes into gear in the forward. Goes in reverse. I'd say that is a job well done. As you can see, that was a pretty quick one on this WA500-8. I'm actually not even here today for this machine in particular, but I'm out here to do a DPF on another one. This customer said, hey man, I need you to look at this one, it's down. You know, in typical fashion, you got to get the most urgent piece of equipment running before you can mess with the other stuff. So got this one up going. It was a quick little job. It wasn't very hard at all. Luckily, it was easy to spot. That's the end of this video. Actually, we'll have another video on replacing the DPF on an identical unit, the sister unit to this one. So tune back in. Until then, we'll see you next time. This is the Shade Tree Certified YouTube channel.